This is Leader Time by FedNet, your podcast source for remarks by Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Minority Leader Chuck Schumer on the Senate floor. On June 3rd, Thune picked up on his remarks of Monday about plans for the summer work period to include budget reconciliation, spending bills, and the annual defense bill. The following material is protected by copyright.
Mr. President, we're entering the sixth month of Republican leadership in Washington. We've already delivered some significant wins for the American people, and there's so much more on the way. When this Congress began, we got right to work getting President Trump's cabinet in place. We confirmed 21 cabinet positions at a faster pace than any administration since George W. Bush. The Republican Senate has confirmed 68 civilian nominees so far this year, the most since the Obama administration. Secretaries, administrators, deputies, undersecretaries, 11 ambassadors to postings around the globe, the most diplomats confirmed at this point since 2001. And our committees continue to work hard to refer additional nominees to the floor. Mr. President, the Senate's also passed a number of bills already this year. In the first few weeks of this year, we took up the Laken-Riley Act, a bill to require that law enforcement detain an illegal immigrant caught shoplifting or stealing. We had an amendment process on the floor, a process that made the bill stronger. And the bill that the Senate ultimately passed and President Trump signed into law requires detention for illegal immigrants who assault law enforcement or seriously injure or kill a person, as well as for those caught stealing, like the illegal immigrant who murdered Laken-Riley last year. We also passed the HALT Fentanyl Act to permanently schedule fentanyl-related substances as the most deadly type of drug and give law enforcement a critical tool to prosecute those who bring these deadly substances into our country and peddle them in our communities. Last month, President Trump signed Senator Cruz's Take It Down Act into law to combat non-consensual explicit images made with AI and shared online. And the Senate is continuing consideration of the Genius Act this week so that the United States can continue to be a leader in financial innovation and Americans can exercise financial freedom with confidence. Mr. President, the Senate has also been working to repeal burdensome Biden-era regulations. We've passed 18 now Congressional Review Act resolutions targeting regulations that would raise costs, destroy jobs, and reduce choice for the American people. That includes resolutions to block President Biden's natural gas tax, eliminate burdensome new standards for appliances, and block the California electric vehicle mandate that would drive up prices and reduce consumer choice across the country. Mr. President, I'm grateful to my Republican colleagues for all the hard work they put in over these past 5 months. We've made excellent progress, but needless to say, there's still a lot more to do, starting with the reconciliation bill we've been working on now for months. This bill is critical to delivering on President Trump's priorities and the promises that we've made to the American people. It will prevent trillions in tax hikes for hardworking families and small businesses. It will invest in our border security to safeguard the progress the Trump administration has already made. And it will strengthen our military and unleash American energy for a stronger and safer America. And as I said yesterday, Mr. President, the Senate will consider the bill on the floor this work period with the goal of getting it on the President's desk before July the 4th. Appropriations season is also upon us, and we'll be working to consider as many appropriations bills as possible under regular order. Work on the annual National Defense Authorization Act is also underway, and I hope Democrats will work with us to move the NDAA and appropriations bills through committee and consider them on the Senate floor. Mr. President, when the American people elected President Trump and a Republican Congress last November, they expected us to deliver. We've worked hard to deliver on our mandate, and we are not taking our foot off the gas. There's too much to do.
For his part, Schumer addressed anti-Semitism, healthcare impacts of the reconciliation package, clean energy in Iran.
So on anti-Semitism, the attack in Colorado, the shooting in Washington, the arson in Pennsylvania have one thing in common. The assailants have cited anti-Israel sentiment as justification for their violence. They have, in other words, used the actions of the Israeli government they don't like to justify violence against Jewish Americans here at home. This is, unfortunately, a growing trend since October 7th. As the highest-ranking Jewish elected official in American history, I have watched with growing alarm as a poisonous ideology, ancient in its roots, but modern in its mutations, has spread across our country. We are witnessing, in real time, the resurgence of collective blame against the Jewish people. And if we do not confront it clearly, unequivocally, and together, we risk opening the door to even darker days. Now, I've said it. I've said that it is legitimate and not anti-Semitic to peacefully protest and criticize the actions of any government, including the Israeli government. But there's a profound and dangerous difference between criticizing a government and condemning an entire people. The idea that Jews everywhere be responsible for the policies of the Israeli government is not only false, it plays on one of the oldest forms of anti-Semitism out there, blaming the Jews collectively for the world's problems. Whether it's blaming the Jews for the death of Christ, blaming Jews for bringing in immigrants as part of the conspiracy theory of great replacement, or blaming the Jews for actions of the Israeli government that one may not like, it is all the same, a pretext for hate. I have long warned that if we aren't careful, what starts as legitimate critiques against the Israeli government can easily slip into something far more sinister. If disagreements are allowed to morph into intolerance, if intolerance is permitted to spread and linger, if bigoted voices are allowed to take over legitimate debates, history shows that the threat of violence is never too far away. I fear history is beginning to whisper its warnings once again. Our nation has been strongest when it has stood against bigotry in all forms. Let us summon that strength again. The way forward is very clear. All Americans of goodwill must stand together to condemn anti-Semitism and all forms of intolerance, no matter where it rears its ugly head. Let us remember what America is all about and who we are. On health care. Donald Trump and his so-called big, beautiful bill is ugly to its very core. Behind the smoke and mirrors lies a cruel and draconian truth. Tax breaks for the ultra-wealthy, paid for by gutting health care for millions of Americans. Over the past few days, Donald Trump has tried to sell this bill to Republican senators with a new lie. He's been telling Republican senators and the American people that no one will lose coverage, that no benefits will be slashed, that the bill won't harm recipients. Let's call it what it is, a lie. People will lose coverage. Millions will. Donald Trump is lying to the American people when he says no one will lose coverage under this ugly bill. There is no way for Republicans to seek the cuts they want without removing millions of people off their health care in one way or another. I warn my Republican colleagues, do not buy Donald Trump's snake oil sales pitch. Republicans want to cut out waste, fraud, and abuse? Good. We'll help them do it. This bill certainly isn't that. Make no mistake, this big, beautiful bill is in reality repeal and replace by another name. This is a health care bill to its core. To cut through their lies, let's talk facts. Fact, 20 million Americans will see their health care costs go up. Fact, 14 million Americans, including children and seniors, will lose their coverage entirely. Fact, of adult Medicaid recipients, fact, adult Medicaid recipients, the vast majority, overwhelming majority, already work. Many of them will be thrown off coverage anyway. Fact, this bill has millions lose health care. Donald Trump wants to talk fraud. Republicans want to talk fraud. Fine. The fraud we actually see in Medicaid isn't coming from families making ends meet. It's coming from the top, large providers, unscrupulous bigwigs. The reality is that most fraud in Medicaid happens not with individual enrollees, but at the level of health care providers. Not all of them, not most of them, but a handful who do fraud. Donald Trump, it's more than a handful, but it's not all of them at all. But Donald Trump is doing nothing to hold them accountable, just the opposite. The other day, he pardoned a nursing home executive who skimmed $10 million from the paychecks of nurses, doctors, and other employees. Hear that, folks? Donald Trump, who says he wants to reduce fraud, just pardoned a nursing home executive who skimmed $10 million from the paychecks of his employees. The reality is simple. There's not enough fraud in Medicaid and ACA to make Republicans' math work. They know it. Republicans may not want to admit it publicly, but they know that under their current proposal, millions of Americans, including millions who are employed, who have families, will lose their health care coverage. Republicans want to shorten the enrollment period. They want to bury families in red tape. They want to drown states in new administrative hurdles. Republican strategy, in large part, is to make it so difficult for people to sign up for health care, so easy to fall through the cracks that tens of millions of Americans will simply lose coverage. And it would be by design. Just ask vote. Just look at 2025. Senate Republicans can make jokes all they want that we're going to die anyway. But for many working-class Americans, health care is the difference between life and death. Let me be clear. Democrats are ready. When Republicans finally release the full text of their so-called big, beautiful bill, Americans' people will see the truth. They will see how ugly it is. And we will fight it with facts, with urgency, and with the voices of the millions of Americans who deserve better than this cruel, cynical attack on their health care and on their dignity. On clean energy, Donald Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill should really be called one big, ugly energy killer. With this monstrosity of a bill, Donald Trump and Republicans seem ready to kill clean energy in its tracks and raise people's energy costs in the process. The only people celebrating the Republican bill's energy policies are the fossil fuel industry, because it will be the fossil fuel industry whose pockets are lined. The fossil fuel industry simply has blind hatred of clean energy. You know why? They know it's the future. They know it's cheaper. They know it's where we're going, that America needs clean energy in order to meet our demands moving forward. We all know America has a huge and growing demand for new energy. We're going to need 10 times as much electricity to continue powering breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, which isn't going away anytime soon. But with their bill, Republicans want to cut off one of the major ways, the newest, cheapest, and fastest growing way to produce new energy, because they want to tax new clean electricity, stifling the supply of new energy, putting us at risk of falling behind in AI to countries like China. And what would the Republican plan mean for average American family or small business? Simple. Higher energy costs. To the American people, I say, if this bill passes, your electricity costs are going up. Look at the facts. The Republican plan will increase average national electricity prices by about 10%. The Republican plan will increase total household energy costs by $32 billion. That means American families will pay $32 billion more, all to please the ideological blindness of the fossil fuel industry. And that's not to mention that the Republican plan would cost America about 800,000 jobs by 2030, all across America in red states and blue states. What a terrible price to pay just to lower taxes for the ultra-rich, just to line the pockets of the fossil fuel industry, to satisfy the ideological hatred that fossil fuel industry has for clean energy, and to lose out on American energy dominance. on Iran. Yesterday, I called out President Trump for, on the one hand, telling the public his goal is to fully dismantle Iran's nuclear facilities, but then, on the other hand, secretly negotiating a side deal that will allow the Iranian regime to keep enriching. Well, it looks like we got his attention because he followed up by denying this report in an all-caps tweet storm. The old saying is, trust but verify. In this case, Congress must verify. The administration must clarify what they might be hiding from the American people in this secret side deal. Steve Witkoff and those negotiating this deal should testify before Congress and answer a simple question. Is there a secret side deal that will allow the Iranian regime to continue enriching uranium and that empowers the regime's nefarious activity or not? Any deal between the U.S. and Iran must be one Congress can fully and transparently evaluate.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe and tell your friends about us. This program is copyrighted by Federal Network, Incorporated, and provided only for informational and educational purposes. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this episode without expressed written permission from FedNet is prohibited.